Hi everyone, welcome to this webinar on creating an effective study plan. I'm Piyush, and first of all, a very warm Happy New Year to all of you. 2020 was full of surprises for us, but I guess all of us are looking forward to this new year. And I'm sure many of you would have taken some resolutions around this new year. It's going to be very, very different and a unique year start to the year, but I'm sure most of you would have taken some resolutions around it. And some of you might have taken a resolution around getting your GMAT done or maybe entering a top B school. So if that is your resolution, then you are probably at the right place. We are going to discuss a lot about how you can take your GMAT scores to the next level, how you can plan your prep, and all of that in the most effective way. Because this is something which a lot of people don't do well. And if you don't really create a proper study plan or start your GMAT prep on the right front, then many a times you might end up missing your score just because of that reason. So we are going to take up this aspect. It's a very, very important webinar. Today we are going to discuss this. So I'll feel free to tell me a little more about you guys. I'll be happy to hear from you. So feel free to let me know about yourself in the comments here. Let's get to know each other a little better. And in the meantime, you guys tell me about yourself. I'm going to quickly share a little bit about myself, who I am, what I do, and all of that. So I'm Piyush, as I said earlier. I want to be a main host, and overall, I have 8+ years of experience of mentoring students, targeting MBAs from tier 1 schools globally. I've helped many students get into other top schools in India like ISB, Ahmedabad, Bangalore, and top schools abroad as well, including Harvard, Wharton, INSEAD, and the many other schools around the globe. So I have a lot of experience in helping people get into their top schools, including prep for the GMAT and as well as the later part of it, which is around their admissions and all. Um, I have myself prepared for CAT and taught for both GMAT and CAT. CAT is basically the Indian version of GMAT. That's how you can look at it. I prepared for both these tests. I have scored a 740 on GMAT in my very first attempt and a 99.9 percentile on CAT, which is, again, as I said, Indian version of the GMAT. I already have an MBA from one of the top schools in India. I took the GMAT when I was planning to do a second MBA, but yeah, there were some other plans which happened at the end of the day. I did not end up doing that. But yeah, I like analyzing trends and data to come up with strategies, and you're going to see a lot of it even today. So I love analyzing data and strategies around that. Okay, so very quickly, again, let's move to the main part of the webinar. Like, this was about I actually work for GMAT, which is one of the most effective courses out there in the industry today when it comes to the average score improvement. In fact, our average score improvement is the highest in the industry. But yeah, so today's webinar is about how do you create effective study plan, and that is gonna be very, very important. So feel free to let me know if you guys face any challenges when you are thinking about the study plan, when you are creating the study plan for yourself. What are the challenges that you face? Or if you have just started your prep, what are the biggest challenges that you guys are facing today? Please let me know the challenges that you face over here in the comments. I'll be happy to see them, and I'm 100% sure that I'm going to take up all of them, but just want to see if there is one particular thing that you guys are going to talk about which I have not covered in the webinar. I'll definitely take it up as a separate issue as well. Okay, so please feel free to let me know. And the way it is structured is I'm going to first tell you how to create an effective plan of action. And it's not just about the study plan per se, it's also about how can you study properly, not just about the planning part. How do you execute? What are the things that you need to keep in mind in order to have that execution in place and all of that? Okay, so it's going to be about a lot of things. So that's how we will start first, and then in the end, once that part is over, I'm going to take you through the let's say the Q&A part, when I'm going to answer any open-ended questions that you might have. So let me know, guys, whatever questions you have in your mind, like what are the challenges that you guys are facing when you actually when you have started your studies. So feel free to let me know that. I'll be more than happy to take those questions up. Okay, yet to see some responses. Okay, so Lavesh has one response. Lavesh is, I face time constraint, especially in the RC part. Okay, that's okay, Lavesh. I'll be taking that up. I'll help you understand why people face the time constraint and how you can improve upon that. Okay, any other issues any of you are facing? Okay, none of you are facing any other issues. That's great. I'm happy. That's something which I'm not used to seeing. A lot of people come to me and say that, okay, I'm facing these many challenges, but it's good to see that you're not facing many challenges. And I'm gonna help you in with respect to what are the various strategies that might as well help you to get right, stay on that right track throughout your prep. Okay, so let me first talk about how do most people start. When people have to start their prep, what are the things that most people do, and why some of that could not may not be right. So the first thing that people do is they take a mock test. They start by taking a mock test, they take a diagnostic test or something of that sort. Then they start preparing without a personalized study plan. They focus on study plans, but those study plans are not personalized. Sometimes they go for a study plan which is like a 6-month template, works for everyone, will work for you, or a 3-month plan, or they just study without any plan of action as such. They just take up things and then just focus on doing more and more questions, solving more questions and more questions and more questions. They take up the official guide or random questions from here and there, some other books here and there, and they just focus on solving questions. That's how most people start their prep. And I speak to almost 4 to 5 students on a daily basis. And I'm talking about 4 to 5 new students on a daily basis. And this is the most common thing which I see among people. They focus on solving more and more questions. And and many people actually rely on the OG alone, or they gather too many resources for their prep. Like they take up something from this website, from that website, something from here, something from there, and a lot of different things they take up. And in the end, their focus is solely on accuracy. Their sole focus is to get a better accuracy. If they get the questions correct, that's what they think about. The prep is all about. But that's not how you start. Your start of like how you plan your prep is very very important. It takes a actually it actually helps you get to the result much faster. I know my students who have scored a 700 plus on the GMAT in their very first attempt within 2 months itself, in the first attempt. And they planned their prep really well. They just went about it really well. And we are going to talk about some of those cases. Like we are going to talk about what these people did and why they were able to achieve that score that they were able to. Okay, I have been a struggler. It took me a lot longer to get to that score, but I have done the wrong things also. So I can also tell you what are the wrong things that you should avoid, and we will then look at what are the right things that you should do. So both of them we are going to talk about in this webinar. It's going to be really really interesting. So Pratik says, I would like to join GMATWhiz. I'm planning to retake my exam this Jan. Would like to get in touch with you, Piyush. So Pratik, you can get in touch with me like on my email ID, which is piyush@gmatwiz.com. If you would like to schedule a call with me, I'm just gonna share a link over here, so you can probably use this link to schedule a call with me. I'm just sharing it in the chat for you. Let's see some other comments. King says, I haven't started my prep yet. Is your plan going to cover for people who have not started? Yes, King, it is gonna cover people who have not started, and even for people who have started, it will help them understand what are the right things that you need to focus on. So it's going to be very very detailed, and I'm just going to give you a quick overview of what we are going to discuss today, because I see people getting restless about, okay, what is going to happen today. So in very simple terms, what we are going to discuss today is in this 4 things. Okay, so I'm going to get deeper into each of these 4 aspects. I'm going to talk about each of them in depth overall, but just a quick overview. How you should plan for your 720 plus, like what you should be doing, what are the things that you need to do. So there are 4 simple steps. The first thing that you need to do is you need to plan it for it. You need to create a proper study plan, a proper action plan for it, by breaking down your target scores into your target verbal and con scores, and understanding how much effort would be needed where, when should you study, what should you study, all of that. That first step itself is a very critical part. That is almost half the battle won if you actually do that really well. And I'm going to talk about that to start with. Then we will move into execution. That, okay, how do you execute the plan? Once you have created the plan of action for yourself, once you have that study plan with you, how do you execute the plan? And the execution is basically, let's say, half what is left. So basically around 25% of the role is played by how you execute stuff. And I'm going to talk about that in depth as well. All right. And then I'm going to talk about how do you assess yourself? How do you fine tune? How do you ensure that whether you're heading in the right direction or not? What are the metrics? How do you assess? What are the key things that you look at? And finally, how do you optimize your weak areas? So let's say you have assessed that, okay, you're not good at certain things. Like how do you go ahead and improve on it? Okay. So Ridwan is saying, I'm planning on taking my GMAT in March and aiming for a 650 plus. So great, Ridwan. I guess if you are able to put in a decent amount of time, at least around 25 hours a week, should be able to reach that target. Again, it depends on your current score as well. But overall, should be a decent enough target. We're going to talk about how do you plan it now. Okay. So let's get started with that. So first thing that you need to do is identify your target quant and verbal scores. Now, many people come to me, they know that okay, they need a 700 plus, they need a 710 plus or whatever, but many a times people don't really break that target down into your into their target quant and verbal scores. So it is very very important that you have that target right in your mind from the very first day. What you need to do is like understand what should be the optimal quant and what should be the optimal verbal score you should aim for. Now there are two scenarios possible here. Okay, one scenario is you are actually really good in one section. Okay, let's say out of quant and verbal, one area is that you are generally good in, and with engineers generally they are good in quant, but that's a general statement, so it could be very different for you. So if you're good in one section, you need to maximize your score in that section. But there are people who are equally good in both sections or equally bad in both sections. So you need to balance your target score. You need to make sure that don't have unrealistic expectations or doing well on one area. Try to balance your target score. And let me take numbers. Basically, without numbers, all this is just like just random stuff. So let's take some numbers to help you understand this part. So let's say your target score is 720. You're looking at 720, which is a decent enough score for some of the top schools out there. And let's say you are falling in category 1 and your strong area is quant. You're really, really great in quant. In that case, for you, the right target score, target breakdown should be a quant 50 with a verbal 38. That should be enough to take you to a 720 kind of a number. However, if you are strong in verbal, it makes sense to maximize your score in verbal to maybe take it up on 43 or even 44 and have a score of around 46 in quant, which is a decent enough score for someone who is not so good in quant, who is just good in verbal. However, if you are good in both the sections or equally good in both the sections, you should kind of target a 48 in quant and a 40 in verbal, which are very, very comparable scores with respect to skills. Okay, I'm generally speaking about skills. Very, very, very comparable scores with respect to skills. So that's how you should identify and break down your target scores. Now, once you have your target scores broken down, you need to start planning your phases of learning. So there are three broad phases in which one should learn. Okay, three broad phases, and please bear in mind, I'll talk about these three phases in depth. Okay, the first phase is your learning phase. Okay, this is basically the phase where around 60 to 70% of your energy should go. Okay, and again, I'm saying this keeping in mind that people who are planning their prep right, if you talk to people who have achieved success in record amount of time, you would find that their learning phase was the most important phase in their prep. If you really do plan your prep well, around 60 to 70% of your effort should go in learning phase, where you should learn all the concepts, all the application in depth for GMAT. You need to understand what the question is testing and all of that. Many times people cut short on this learning phase. They will only spend 40% or the 50% of their time initially in the learning phase. And then if that they do that, they end up spending more time on it later on. They have to come back to it again and again, which is not the optimal thing to do. And I'm going to talk about the learning phase in depth. Don't worry about it. But this is just a purview of overall how we are going to plan ourselves. Okay. So first is your learning phase, first step. Second step is basically your fine-tuning phase. Okay, once you have learned all the concepts and the understanding of them, taken it to a decent level, you need to identify what are your strong and weak areas, and then specifically give attention to those weak areas. And if you're planning your prep right, this should take about 20% of your effort. This should be taking about 20% of your effort, to 20 to 25% is what I would say. Okay, and then comes the last phase, which is the mock phase. And ideally, if you're planning your prep right, your mock test phase should only take up 10% of the entire time that you spend on your GMAT prep. But sadly, when I speak to people, I see them taking mocks every 7 days, every 3 days, or every 10 days. They start taking mocks too early and they waste the mocks. And in the later phase, they realize they don't have quality mocks left. So make sure that you plan your prep, you divide your prep in 3 phases: learning phase, fine-tuning phase, and mock phase. And I'm going to talk about all 3 phases in depth here. So let's first start with the learning phase. How do you sequence your studies? How do you start learning? And why is this important? This is important because I've seen many people not having a very decent understanding of what is being tested on GMAT. Okay, and that's why they start on the wrong foot. And we are focusing first on what are the skills that are tested on GMAT, and let's start with verbal first. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the sequence of studying for verbal first, and then I'm going to talk about the sequence of studying for quant. Because unless you understand what's the right sequence, creating a study plan is out of the picture. It's out of question as well. You cannot really create a study plan. So first thing you need to understand is what are the skills that are tested on GMAT verbal. Okay, so let's start understanding that. So in GMAT verbal, there are broadly three skills that you are tested on. Number one is comprehension, and it's the single most important skill, I would say. Comprehension skills is basically nothing but having a crystal clear understanding of what's being written. Are you able to contextualize information? Are you able to understand what is written over there? Are you able to get that? Not 70%, not to 80%, but to 100% level. That's number one skill which is tested on GMAT verbal. Second skill that is tested is analytical reasoning. Okay, you understood a sentence, but are you able to contextualize multiple sentences together, multiple pieces of information together, and come up with the flow of information, come up with the gaps in the flow? Okay, is it making sense? Is it not making sense? What are the important aspects? What is the conclusion that the author is trying to do? That is the second skill that is tested, analytical reasoning. The third skill that is tested is, are you able to, given a bigger piece of information, given a significant chunk of information, can you identify the main point? Can you focus on the main point and get it right in your head? Are you able to do that or not? That's another skill that is tested on GMAT. Very, very critical skill overall. Okay, guys, I'm gonna switch to another network. I am not sure if the video is very clear to all of you. So I'm gonna switch to another network so that you guys can hear me loud and clear. Can you guys hear me now? Are you guys able to hear me now? Can you quickly say yes or no? Because I felt that my network was not as great. So I've just switched to another network. Feel free to let me know if you guys can hear me loud and clear. Should be better, much better now. Okay. So anyway, so the third skill which is tested on GMAT verbal is focus on main point. Are you able to identify the main point given a bigger piece of information, bigger like passage or something? And are you able to get the main picture out of it, main crux out of it? That's the third skill that is tested on GMAT verbal. Okay, these are three broad skills which are tested on GMAT. And if you kind of map your like the sections on GMAT, sentence correction only tests you on the first skill. So thank you, Harsh and Mahima, for letting me know that my like audio and video is good. Thank you, Kazi. Thank you, Pearl. I guess this should be better than the previous one now. But yeah, let's proceed further. So sentence correction is just testing you on your skill number one. It just tests you on comprehension skills. There's some bit of grammar needed, but if you actually contextualize grammar properly, it actually becomes very easy for you to use just comprehension skills to get it right. So I'll talk about it a little more in depth. But SC just tests you on skill number one, which is comprehension skills. Now, what about CR? CR basically tests you on both the things, comprehension as well as analytical reasoning, because you don't really need to just understand the individual sentences out there. You need to relate multiple sentences together and analytically reason with yourself that, okay, what is this piece of information really communicating? What is the entire discussion all about? So analytical reasoning is the second skill which is tested on CR. These are two skills which are tested on CR. Okay. In RC, on the other hand, all three pieces of information is required, because if you look at RC, is nothing but a bigger CR question. Let's put it that way. So you have more details to focus on. You have to identify the main intent of the author. Why is he writing it? Because there may not be a clear-cut conclusion over there. You might have to read between the lines to get all that understanding in your mind. So if you look at the three skills, all three skills are tested in reading comprehension. Now, let me ask you guys a question. Again, I have been doing a monologue for quite some time now. What do you think should be the right sequence that one should follow in order to learn? What do you think? Looking at the skills, looking at the mapping across sections, what do you think is the most logical order? Let me put the ball in your court. Instead of me telling you how to do it, let me ask from you. What do you guys think now that you have an understanding of the skills? And I'm really looking forward to some great responses. And the beauty about this entire thing is, if you understand the logic behind it, it's very easy for you to identify what is right and what is wrong. You just need to understand it logically. And trust me, like many people don't understand GMAT from a logical perspective. They take it as a test, but there's a lot of thought process that goes behind every question which is created on GMAT and the way it is structured. If you understand and dissect and bisect the entire test, even the algorithm, you can actually get to a very good score. Okay. So I'm yet to see any responses, guys. Okay, Kazi has one response. Kazi says SC followed by CR followed by RC is the best option. Okay, Prasanna also says the same. Really happy to see these responses from you. What about other people? What do other people think? Let's see a few more responses. Okay. Sabir also says the same. Webhub is also in favor of the same. SCCRRC. Okay, why are you guys saying that? Let's see. Let's hear from me. Why do you think that makes sense? Why do you think that makes sense? Okay, Mahima says comprehension skills followed by analytical and lastly focus on main points. So I guess Mahima, you're also saying the same thing. Yeah, so good guys, really happy. I sometimes see people telling a different order as well, but I'm really happy. And see, this is the beauty of understanding the test, simply put. If you understand the test, what is it testing you, it becomes very easy for you. So the easiest way to go about it is doing starting with sentence correction. Now, why do I say it? I have one response from Havuk who actually goes the other way around. He says starting with SRC makes more sense. But let me put it this way, like, why do I say sentence correction is what you should start with? Because if you are starting with sentence correction, you just need to focus on building one skill at a time. That is your comprehension skills. You just need to worry about building this skill. If you build your comprehension skills to a level where you can be confident about comprehending any piece of sentence which is given to you, trust me, when you move to critical reasoning, all you need to focus and give your attention to is analytical reasoning. You don't need to really worry about comprehension skills. But imagine that if you start with CR directly, if you start with CR directly, you might have to work on all three skills at the same time. And if you're poor at them, you have to develop all three at the same time. It's going to be a big problem, and pinpointing exactly where you're struggling is also going to be a bigger issue. So CR makes sense to be like, it makes sense to do CR after SC. Okay. Really good point, Harsh. Learning from SC such as of use of modifiers from CR such as inference would help in RC. Yes, that's how. So that's one way of putting it, like question types. But if you look at skills, this is what is tested. Modifiers is nothing but helps you in comprehension. Inference is nothing but a part of analytical reasoning, and that's what helps you in RC. So really good point, Harsh. Really happy to see your questions and responses, and that's it's good to see all of you thinking about this really in depth. Okay, so now if you work on CR and if you do really well on CR and build up this skill of analytical reasoning, the moment you go to RC, you have a very strong hold over two of the skills that you need to focus on. So all you need to do is get your main point skills in place, and you're done and dusted. Okay, so that's the right sequence that you should follow for verbal. And why I talked about this, because many a times I come across people, they say, okay, I study SCRC and CR on alternate days, or maybe one each day, or all three I try to do every single day. Remember, in the learning phase, I'm not talking about the fine tuning or the mock phase. That's a separate story altogether. But in your learning phase, you should do them sequentially. That's the only thing which makes sense. And try to move to CR only when you're doing decently well on SC. Otherwise, you're not gonna do as much as well as you can think of. Okay, so it's very critical that you focus on this sequence particularly. Okay, so what should we do for quant or verbal? So should we do quant or verbal? So Keshav, again, whether you should do just quant or verbal is also dependent on how much time you have. So if you have, let's say, 20 plus hours, like if you have 20 hours or 25 hours in a week, I would recommend you to just focus on one area first. Obviously, when you will move to the other one, let's say you start with quant and then you move to verbal, you need to stay in touch with quant at that point of time as well. Okay, but let's say you have more time than that, you have more than 25 hours, let's say 30 hours a week you have, which is rare for working professional, but let's say you have it, then you can divide your time in quant and verbal and do them parallelly. I don't have a problem with that. Okay, Keshav is asking also, what's the average target hours of preparation before the GMAT exam? So Keshav, that's actually a very personalized question. It is different for different users. Some people take 100 hours, some people take 300 or 400 hours as well. I'm going to talk about that, don't worry. Let's go to that one step at a time. Okay, Aman says, I took a Veritas free test today, got a 43 and 22, aiming for Q50, 14, verbal. I'm working consulting space. So could you also touch upon plan for working professionals? So Aman, the entire plan is gonna be for everyone, like just working professionals and other people as well. At GMATWhiz, we believe in personalized study plans, and I'm gonna talk about that. But this is basically an idea about how you should structure your prep, irrespective of whether you're a working professional or a student as of now. Okay, so captain says I am taking the GMAT on March 1. How should I go about it? And Captain Vyom, I guess your name is Vyom. So Vyom, that is what we are talking about right now. So if you've just started, make sure that you sequence your verbal like this. Now, what about quant? Now, in quant, very many people actually focus on telling you that, okay, do number properties first, do algebra, then word problems and geometry. But what you need to understand in quant is that in quant it doesn't work like that. You cannot do one module at a time, because the interrelation of topics in quant is much more stronger. Okay, so for example, you cannot prime factorize and deal with powers if you know nothing about exponents. So let's say you start with number properties. Okay, so you are basically solving prime factors related questions, prime numbers related questions, but you have not gone through algebra. And exponents is one thing which is a very important part of prime factorization, and exponents is a part of algebra. So you won't be able to do well if you start with number properties. Okay, this is just an example. Similarly, you cannot solve divisibility equations if you are not aware of linear, simultaneous, or special equations, and so on. So in quant, it's not gonna really work out with the understanding of without the understanding of some essential topics. So what you should do in quant is you should work on the basic topics first. Basic topics are ones which are required to get a good hold on other intermediate and advanced topics. So you need to understand which topics are tested everywhere and have a right order of learning from them. Because many a times I've seen students starting with the wrong thing, starting with the more complex thing without working on the basics first. And if you are not doing that, then you're definitely going to struggle. And why I'm saying so, because I have seen many courses, many books which are out there that are actually suggesting you otherwise. They just ask you to go through these things in module wise fashion. Please don't do that. First work on basic topics, then work on intermediate topics, and only then move to advanced topics. Okay, so this is the order that you should follow in quant. Now I'm sure some of you might be thinking, okay, Piyush, what is basic, what is intermediate, and what is advanced? I don't really know that. How do I know this? Okay, so basically, if you want like you want to understand all of that, I have your screen right now. So there are these 33 topics which are tested on GMAT. Basically, 33 topics are tested on GMAT. All of them are on your screen right now, and this is the right order in which you should go about. And what I've done is I've color coded them. Green are the topics from number properties. In blue are the topics from algebra. In like this maroonish color, you have the topics from word problems, and in black color, you have the topics from geometry. So this is the exact order that you should follow. Basically, this takes care of all the basic topics first, then the intermediate, and then the advanced, and it takes care of the interrelation between them. And you can see it's a pretty big mix of all the things that you see. That's the right way to go about doing this. So if you're worried about it, how do I get to know this? Where should I note it down? Probably you can go through the recording, note it down at your end, or I will actually give you an option of creating a personalized study plan for yourself also. There you will get all the details that you want to get. Okay, so you don't need to really worry about it or note it down. But this is how you should identifying the right sequence for quant. Now, what about people who have prepared already? Okay, I talked about people who are just starting their prep, but what about people who have done some bit of prep? Let's say they've prepped for 2 months or so. Okay, what you should do? So what these people should do is they should take a module-wise test. Module is basically sentence correction, critical reasoning, or reading comprehension, or number properties, algebra, and so on. Take a module-wise test and divide these modules into your strong areas and weak areas. Any module where your score is more than 70% is what is your strong area, and any module where your score is less than 70% is basically your weak area. So let's take an example. Let's say in sentence correction, you get a 90% score, in CR, you get a 60% score, and in RC, you get a 40% score. So what you need to do first is you need to first work on your weaker areas. Okay, you should do CR first, then RC, and then SC. And remember, I'm not asking you to do RC first, even though RC is the poorest. And the reason for that is simple. CR and RC have some bit of interrelation between them. So what I'm trying to say here is within your weak and strong areas, try to follow the order which I talked about earlier. So try to follow that order as much as possible, because if there are two areas in your weak zone, there is a high likelihood that the poor understanding of one might be affecting the other if one is more fundamental in nature. For example, CR is more fundamental in nature than RC. There is a possibility that your poor understanding of CR is impacting your performance in RC as well. So do CR first and then move to reading comprehension. That should be the right way of doing it. And since SC is your strongest, you just need to focus on it towards the end. Okay, I guess till this part is clear to all of you. Any questions till now? Please feel free to type in the chat here. I'm giving you 10 seconds for that, and I'm gonna mute my stop my camera in the meantime. Okay. Any questions till this point? Okay. Okay, so I don't see any questions as of now. So let's start with that next part. So, okay, so all these factors are supposed to be taken into account. Your target score, your right sequence of learning, and then you need to understand, okay, if all these things are to be learned in this order, how much time I have, how do I, like, you need to assign the right amount of time to each area, and then create a proper study plan which gives you clear targets and clear deadlines for everything that is supposed to be completed. Because if you don't have clear targets and deadlines, there's a very high likelihood that you might fall off the track. You might think that, okay, I'll be getting ready by round one, but many a times I see people pushing themselves to round two just because they don't have a clear target or deadline with them. Okay, so depending on like where you stand at present, it might take anywhere between 100 to 350 hours, and even sometimes 400 hours for you to prep for the GMAT. And the factors that are taken into account to actually identify the right prep time or to create a right study plan is: what are your strengths and weaknesses? What is the time available with you every week? Then what is the right sequence of learning? That's something which talked about. And also how much content you need to study. So all of this has to be taken into account when you are creating your personalized study plan. And this is one very humongous task which most of the people are not able to achieve. And in fact, there are many study plans which are available on the internet. There are people who give you PDFs of study plans and all of that, but all of them are static. This was one big problem in the industry that we found out. As a student also, as a teacher also, we found that people are not giving access to personalized plans which work on the go. Basically, it should not be something which is static. It should be dynamic, which changes in real time based on how you perform. So we came up with the idea of creating a tool which helps you to create a personalized study plan for yourself. And I'm making your life easy. If you don't want to do all this exercise yourself and actually make a personalized study plan for yourself, you can just click on the simple link which I've shown on your screen right now. You can use the simple link and register for a free study plan. And I'm going to show you how the study plan basically works. So this is a snapshot of the study plan from our tool itself, which is GMATWhiz. It's a slightly dated version of it. Like you can see that the date is shown as in May. So this video was created in May, but this is how it basically works. It's very similar to this. So how it basically works is, every single week when you create the study plan, it gives you tasks for every single week, and it shows you clearly what are your milestones. So for the student, the milestone to complete quant foundation is 31st May, the milestone to complete quant intermediate is 18th June, and so on. So the student knows that by 16th of July the student is going to be done with his GMAT prep. You can see every single activity. It's not just a calendar, like just a simple calendar. It actually allows you to start right off the go. So you can click on any activity for any day, and you can click on the start button and get started right away. You don't really need to open the study plan somewhere else and actually study from somewhere else. It's a plan which is integrated with the entire course. So think of it like as your weekly task list, as the entire view. You can simply click on the start button at any point of time and get started from anywhere. You can do that. Okay, so it's simple. You have targets with you. All you need to do is execute them, and it's an entire view. You can see what is to be done in July. You can see what is to be done in June. You can click on it and get started right away. So it does all the planning for you. And this is the calendar view. As I said, you can go to the task view and just focus on the current week's task. So it tells you that, okay, in this week you need to put in this much time. You need to complete all these lessons and all of that. And as I said, it takes care of everything from learning till quizzes to every single entity that you need to go through. So all you do is click on the start button and it gets started right away. You get the lessons in place, you get the videos in place. All you're supposed to do is begin learning. And as I said, this plan is not a static plan. This is a dynamic plan. Every single week when you log in for the first time, it is going to tell you how much time is left, how much work you did in the last week, how much of it is left, and it will create a new plan basis the time available with you. So you have the option of changing the time this week. If you have more time, enter it. If you have less time, enter that, and a new fresh plan will be updated and created for you on the go. Okay, so if you really want to make a study plan for yourself, you can just click on this link and create the plan for yourself. I'm going to just show you the link once again. So you can use this link to create a personalized plan. It will take into account your current score, your target score, the time available with you, and all of that. Okay, So Omkar has an interesting question. Omkar says, how do I get a 650 from 600 score in a week? So Omkar, not easy to achieve in a week, obviously, but it depends again on what are your weak areas and how much time available with you. So make sure that you actually book a call with me. You can discuss it with me. I will understand your skill level as of now. And if it is possible to achieve it in a week, I'll try my best to tell you that. We have helped people in the past to get from a 700 to a 740 in a couple of weeks. But again, those were special cases where they had just 1 or 2 areas to work on. And this guy was giving just 2 hours or 3 hours in a day to prep. Okay. We have done that in the past. We can probably help you, but it depends on the weak areas, as I said. So feel free to connect with me. I shared a link a little while earlier for communicating with me. I'm gonna quickly share that once again. If you guys want to connect with me, you can do that. So this is the link to schedule a call with me. So connect with me, Omkar. Let's see if we can achieve it or not. Okay. Let me take a few more questions. Karan is saying, how much do OG questions in both quant and verbal resemble with actual exam questions in terms of difficulty? So Karan, good point. See, OG questions, especially for quant, do not resemble the actual test if you are targeting a 700 plus kind of a score. If you're targeting anywhere 48 or plus, because in OG questions, there are not so many difficult questions, as in there are not many 700 level questions. Probably 10% of them are 700 level. But if you're targeting 48 plus, you'll most likely encounter more than half of the questions in the test which are 700 plus. So the average difficulty of the actual test is much higher. And in verbal as well, to a great degree. In verbal is still slightly better, but that's a subjective definition. So OG, the difficulty level, the mix of the difficulty level of OG is more representative of a 600 to 650 kind of a target number, but not a 700 plus target number. Okay. Vyom is asking, I already have a subscription with another GMAT prep center. Can you help create a plan? So Vyom, this personalized plan tool, which I showed you earlier, this is a free tool. It helps you create a study plan. It helps everyone create a study plan. You will be able to see the plan for yourself from using this link. You may not be able to access all the content. That's one thing. For accessing the content, you would need to basically purchase the course. Like you need to upgrade your account. But in the free trial also, you can at least get a plan created for yourself, that okay, how I need to plan. And if you need my personal inputs with regards to your plan, even if you're working with any other prep company, feel free to connect with me. I don't have a problem helping out. I speak to 4 to 5 students, new students every single day. So if you feel free to reach out to me. But if you just want a study plan, like you can use this tool and create one for yourself. All right. So with that, remember, a goal without a plan is just a wish. So if you're thinking about getting a 700 plus on GMAT and you still don't have a plan for it, if you still don't have deadlines for it, if you still don't have a level of this details which tells you exactly what is supposed to be done on every single day, then you're not holding yourself accountable for it. It's still just a wish to get a 700 plus. You need to put it into action. This is very, very important. Okay, so Keshav is asking for the link. Keshav, here is the link. You can use this quickly. I'm going to take it away because it kind of obstructs the screen. So quickly check it out. Okay, if I feel both quant and verbal are not that easy to crack, which one I should give priority to? So Shibin, if that is the case, give priority to the one which you are more comfortable with. Obviously, more is a comparative word. You will most likely be comfortable with one of the two. Okay, more comfortable with one of the two. Whichever you're more comfortable with, start with that. Because in this case, you probably need a little more motivation to work with the test. Okay, so ensure that you start with the stronger area in this case. And again, there is another school of thought, but in your case, I would recommend starting with this. Okay, and in this plan, generally, we give a recommendation if you have some scores. Okay, Nandini is asking for the books or resources which book or resource is having questions for 700 plus target level. So Nandini, GMATWhiz has a lot of 700 plus level questions. In fact, we have 750 level plus questions as well. So you can look at our course. You can also look at advanced official guide, but again, those things come next. So with the planning part now done, let's now talk about the second part, which is execution. Okay, which is very, very important. Bhavuk, you can connect with me. That's not a problem. We can discuss about your RC skills. And we have helped many students like you, like who have scored a 640 or a 650 to reach that 700 plus number. Okay, very recently, we helped a student to reach from a 520 to a 760 as well. So we can definitely help you out. Feel free to connect with me. That's not an issue. Okay, I'll help at least tell you what to do. Okay. Vishal, again, Vishal has a question. Vishal says, if I just take this course, I do not have to review Manhattan or OG. So OG is something we ask students to go through, and the course will automatically take that account into account as well. It's an AI driven course. So at relevant intervals, it will tell you which OG questions to solve as well. So you don't need to worry about that. But about other resources like Manhattan or something else, we generally recommend to stick to one resource because different resources use different methods and they are going to confuse you. Okay, so guys, I'm gonna stick to this now. I'm gonna talk about the execution. If you have any other questions around the resources and all, you can please keep it for the Q&A part of it. I'm gonna take them up for sure. Okay, so with regards to execution, let me talk about that now. There is something which is very critical which we need to understand is many people have certain myths in their mind. They don't really understand the GMAT algorithm, and that's why their execution suffers. They don't execute the plan really well. So in order to focus on the execution and do it right, we need to actually understand, like break this myth and understand how the algorithm works. So one thing which many people think is accuracy is all that matters. What matters is taking more tests, more questions, solving more questions, and getting a high accuracy. That's what most people think about. Okay, but let me break that myth for you. So I'm going to share how the GMAT algorithm works, and this is one section which I really love to discuss because this is something which is not touched by many people and they don't explain it that well. So this is very, very important. So what I'm showing you here on your screen is the snapshot of one student's verbal attempt. In fact, this is the snapshot of my own ESR that you see on the screen. So this is actual GMAT snapshot. What it gives us is the number of mistakes made by me in the entire verbal section. So the first quarter had 8 questions. Second quarter has 7 questions. Let me write it again. The third quarter has 7 questions and the last quarter had 8 questions. So total of 30 out of 36 questions are scored. So this tells me that I made 7 mistakes in the 30 questions which are scored on GMAT. Okay. And my verbal score, as you can see on your screen, was 41. Okay. I got a 41 in verbal. So I showed this data to you. Now I'm going to show you another snapshot on your screen. Okay. So this is another snapshot. On the right side, you can see another snapshot of one more student's data point. This is by another student. And if you see, the number of mistakes made by 3 students is just 5. So this student made 3 mistakes in the first quarter, 1 in the second quarter, and 1 in the third quarter, and no mistakes in the last quarter. Okay. What I want you to do is take a minute of your time and I want you to guess or predict what could be the verbal score. Keep in mind that I had a verbal score of 41. What could be the verbal score of the second student on your screen? Please let me know in the chat here. I'm going to give you 1 minute. I'm going to mute myself during this time. Okay. So let me know what do you think is the verbal score, could be the verbal score of the second student here. I'll wait for a minute. Okay. I'm yet to see any responses. Harsh says verbal 39. Prasanna says 37. Okay, so you guys really think that the student has made less mistakes and still getting a lesser score than 41? Vyom says it should be 45. Aman says 38. See guys, I made 7 mistakes and I had a 41. And I'm talking about a student who has made 5 mistakes. Okay, Keshav says 35. Vishal says less than 41. Mahima says exactly 41. Okay. Ashish says 35. Okay. Interesting. Early 30s maybe, Keshav says. Okay, good point. Keshav. Karan says, oh, 38. Okay. Okay, so it's good to see that most of you are saying it should be less, it will be less than 41. Why do you think it should be less than 41? The student has made less mistakes than I did. Just 5 mistakes in the entire test. I made 7 mistakes. Then why a lesser score than a 41? And trust me, when I actually looked at this report for the first time, I was also, I kind of felt, okay, this is wrong. This is wrong. But then I looked at the difficulty level chart and yeah, it made all the sense. Okay. Aman says because the first 2 quarters matter. Okay, good point, Aman. Really happy to see it. So basically, the verbal score of the student was 34. Okay, good point, Prasanna. Adaptive, it got easier. That's right. It's adaptive based test, so it was easier. Good, great to see this. And trust me, guys, I did not understand the algorithm initially as much. So it is great to see that you guys are understanding it, and I kind of love conducting this webinars to help you understand it better. So I'm really happy to know that you guys have a good understanding of this. And let's see the difficulty level chart of these two students. So if you see, and I talked to the student, so the student made 3 mistakes in the very first 3 questions. That's the biggest blunder that you can do. If you start with on the wrong foot, initially itself, the test feels that you don't have the capability of getting the easy questions right. And that's when the difficulty level never rises. Okay. So the student bang on target, Harsh, right? The student actually made mistakes in the easier questions. So the algorithm never served the hard questions to them. And if you see the difficulty level, difference in the difficulty level, look at the second quarter. I made 1 extra mistake in the second quarter, but my average difficulty level was much higher. If I bring them side by side, you can see the difference in the questions, the average difficulty of the questions that I was getting right and versus the other student was getting right. And that's a huge, huge difference. And even in the third quarter, where I got 100% accuracy, I had more difficult questions which I got correct. With comparison to the other student, you can see what is the difference in the average difficulty level. Both of us are getting right. So if you really think that accuracy is what matters on GMAT, think twice, because this is something which I hear from many people. They come and say, even today I was having a word with one guy, and they were saying that, okay, when I'm doing OG questions, I'm getting 70-80% accuracy. I'm pretty confident about my skills. I have booked my GMAT and I'm gonna take it soon. Okay, I told him, did you even take a mock test? He said no, because I was getting confident with my accuracies on OG. I said it doesn't really matter what is your accuracy. What matters is what is your skill level. You need to understand which questions you are getting right. Skill is basically, if you are really looking at a 700 plus score, you need to build the ability to get a question of any difficulty level correct. That's something which is very, very important. Now, what does a score of 550 to 650 signify? I see many people getting stuck in this range. What happens here is, if you have a very high accuracy in easy questions, let's say around 90%, but in medium questions, you are stuck around 60-70%, then what happens is the algorithm never serves you hard questions or serves you very few hard questions. And if you are in this score range, it most likely means that you're not getting the hard questions right. So what it basically means is you're struggling with the application of concepts. So why I'm talking about all this? Because I want you to understand that concepts, a good understanding of concepts can take you to the level of 550 to 650. But if you want to break this, you need to focus on application skills. And I'm going to talk about the application skills as well. So in order to a 700 plus score, you need to be very, very good with all difficulty level of questions. So in order to get to 700 plus, as I said, there are 2 things that you need to do. First thing, you need to make the algorithm serve you hard questions. And that's what the other student was not able to do on that day. So you need to make the algorithm serve you hard questions. And this can be achieved by getting the easy and medium questions correct. But the second step, which is more important after that, is you need to get the hard questions right. Okay, you need to get the hard questions right. And this will only happen if you learn the right skills and how to apply them. Okay, and this brings us to the next myth. Next myth when people prepare, the myth is they think skill building is all about learning concepts and then practicing. Okay, and let me hear from you, how many of you think the same, that skill building is all about learning concepts and then just practicing? And please be honest and say yes or no to me. I'm happy to see it. Again, I've labeled this as a myth, so most likely I'm going to see a lot of no's, but I will be happy to see your responses, guys. What do you think? Is skill all about concepts and practice? What do you think? If you think yes, just say a yes. If you think no, just say a no. And see some interaction from you. I don't want it to be a monologue. Okay. Yet to see any response. Okay. Don't be shy, guys. Be honest. Okay, Vishal says yes. I believe skills is all about concepts and then practice. Okay, Vishal. What about others? Okay, Karan also says the same. Nandini says the same. Keshav says yes in a time manner, though. Sabir says yes. So I'm only seeing yeses. Okay. Some people are now coming with no. Shekhar, Vishal. Okay. Good. Happy to see a good mix. So yeah, this is one myth which I had. When I was a student, I also felt that, okay, skill building is just about learning concepts and then doing more practice. And what I used to do was, I remember, for example, I'm taking example of sentence correction, then I'll actually come to other areas as well. What I did was, I focused on learning the rules in sentence correction. That was all that I did. I remember I took up subject verb, learned the rules for that. I took up tenses, then learned the rules for them, then modifiers, parallelism, pronouns, and all the other concepts. I just made sure that I'm learning the rules for individual topics really, really well. That's how I learned sentence correction. My focus was on learning concepts, getting a good hold over them. Now, the typical thing that happened with me was I was doing well on individual questions. The moment I did subject verb, I solved questions on subject verb, I was doing well. I did tenses. I solved question on tenses. The exercises which were there, I was doing well. I was so happy that I'm on the right track. But the moment I actually started solving 700 level questions, I started getting them wrong. I still remember the very first test I took. I was so tense. I was so worried. I only got a 13 percentile on that test. I was really shown the mirror that where all I'm going wrong. I was not able to get the 700 level questions wrong. And later on, not right away, but later on, I realized the main problem was I was having no focus on a common learning thread or application. There was no common learning thread which was there. All these concepts were different things for me, and there was no focus on skill. There was no focus on application. Now, to some people, this might sound like, okay, what is Piyush talking about? This is not making sense? Isn't this what you are supposed to do in sentence correction? Not really, guys. I was actually made aware of something else which matters. And the biggest problem that we do is we focus on individual concepts and then we learn some shortcuts. When it comes to applying the concepts, we just learn some shortcuts. For example, some popular shortcuts that are like they're in the industry. In fact, I started with them. Was one is splits approach. You look at the splits, you look at the option choices, see the differences which are there, and just think about the grammar rules, apply them, because the splits will help you understand which grammar rule to apply and which one not to apply. I focused on splits in the entire learning curve, did not help me. Similarly, in RC, skimming is a very, very common shortcut. People skim through passages very quickly in a couple of minutes, then come back to the passage once again very quickly. In data sufficiency, for example, jumping to statements directly after reading the question is a very, very common shortcut. But trust me, these shortcuts are not really shortcuts. They don't take you to success. They actually make you struggle with two choices or get you a poor accuracy. Okay, and I'm gonna illustrate that with an example. Okay, so again, this is a very important question, very good question. I take it in some of the sessions. I want you guys to take a shot at this question, and my objective is not to help you learn how to solve this particular question, but to understand what is the meaning of skill, what is the thought process for how you should look at individual question types when you are going through the learning phase, how you should prep yourself. So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes, and please don't post your responses in the chat. Don't write the right answers unless I ask you to do that. So I'm going to mute myself and I'm going to give you a couple of minutes, and I'm again saying don't post your responses in the chat here unless I ask you to do so. Okay, so all the best for this question. I will tell you when to put the responses in the chat. All the best. Please don't post your responses. Harsh, and other people, don't post your responses, please. Okay, guys, I guess I have given more than 2 minutes, so you can now post your responses in the chat. I'll be more than happy to have a look at them. So, what do you think is the right answer? What do you think is the right answer, guys? And this is going to be really important because we are going to conclude something from this. It's not just I want you to solve this question. We want to understand what is that people miss when they prepare, and how can you not make the mistake? How can you avoid that mistake? Okay, so Ankur says it is B. Harsh goes for E. Okay, I have more people posting now. Vishal says it is E. Samvit says A. Shekhar says B. Vinay says E also. Okay. Ashina goes for E. Keshav is going for C. Mahima says it should be C. Okay. So a lot of you are going for A, E. A good number of you are going for C as well. Some of you mentioned A too. So C and E seem to be very, very popular. A, to some extent, some people are going for B as well. Okay. Okay. In fact, this is a very difficult question, to be honest. Simple enough, but still a difficult question, because sometimes on GMAT, it's the simple questions that are difficult. Uh, Aman says I was able to eliminate A, B, and D from the remaining. I guess E is the correct one. If I actually show you the data from the actual GMAT club test very, very quickly, I'm just okay. Where did the data go? Just a second, guys. Give me just 1 minute. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think let me actually bring this slide up. So let's see if it comes next. Yep. So you can see the data from GMAT Club. Again, this is the data which is based on a lot of attempts on GMAT Club. 36% people actually go for choice C, which is the second most popular choice out of the all choices which are there. 10% people go for choice B and 12% people go for choice A. The right answer in this case is choice E, which is marked by 44% people. Again, very less in comparison to the other choices. And this is definitely a tough question, but many people still get confused between the C and E, and like a lot of people mark A and B as well. But more important, as I said, I'm not going to focus on solving this question. What is more important is the method part. So let's understand how you should approach this question and how many people approach it differently. You would be able to see the difference in the approach. You know how you approached it. Now let me show you how I am going to approach it, so that you're able to understand the difference and why the methodology or the skill or the application is very, very critical, and shortcuts don't work on such questions. Let's see this question. Okay. So a substance. So a sentence talks about a substance derived from the Madagascar periwinkle. So in our course, we teach certain pause points. So whenever you have a verb-like word, which seems like a verb, you need to understand whether that actually word is actually a verb or a modifier, because that kind of is a very, very important factor in understanding the meaning of the sentence. So a substance derived from the Madagascar periwinkle. So the moment I see this, I will stop and ask myself, is derived a verb or modifier? Okay. Now this is an ED verbal form. So there are two tests that we teach students to do, like to understand whether it is a modifier or a verb. I'm not getting into the details of it, but in simple terms, derived in this case is not doing the action of deriving. Like, sorry, the substance in this case is not doing the action of deriving, and there's no was or is in front of derived. So clearly derived is a modifier. Again, I'm not teaching that concept. It is taught very well in our course. You can go through it. Even in free trial, it is available. But this is the idea that we do first. We stop at modifiers, especially the verb-like words, and understand whether they are verbs or modifiers. So in this case, derived is giving me additional information about that substance. Okay, so this is a substance which is derived from the Madagascar periwinkle. Okay, which has proved useful in decreasing mortality among young leukemia patients. Okay, so if I ask myself, what is which referring to? Is it referring to Madagascar periwinkle, or is it referring to the substance? Can you guys tell me? Is which referring to the Madagascar periwinkle, or is it referring to the substance? Can you guys tell me in the chat here? Let's see some responses. What do you think it is referring to, guys? Okay. A difficult question, but let's see what you guys think. Is it referring to the substance or the Madagascar periwinkle? What do you think? Okay, I guess there is a lag. I don't see any responses yet. But if you start thinking about from the meaning perspective. A substance derived from the Madagascar periwinkle, which has proved useful in decreasing mortality among leukemia patients. It can make sense both with the substance and the Madagascar periwinkle. It is really ambiguous over here. It makes sense with both of them. Grammatically, which is placed close to MP. Let me call it Madagascar periwinkle as MP. Grammatically, is placed close to MP. So should be modifying that, but it is ambiguous over here. It makes sense with both of them that substance could have been proved could have proved useful, or it could be MP that has proved useful in test in decreasing the mortality. I'm really not sure from the sentence structure point of view which of the two it is referring to. So the correct choice should ideally clarify this particular error, that okay, what is that which referring to? I don't know, but what I know is most likely the author is talking about the substance, because the sentence is about the substance, so should most likely be it. But grammatically it seems like Madagascar periwinkle. Logically it should be substance, maybe because the substance could have been proved useful in decreasing mortality, not the Madagascar periwinkle. That's how it seems like, but it's still ambiguous, as I said. Let's read further. Is cultivated in China. Now, what is cultivated in China talking about? So clearly, this is cultivated in China is a verb form, okay? And is cultivated in China is not referring to nothing but a substance. So it tells us that the substance is cultivated in China as part of a program to integrate herbal medicine into contemporary system of healthcare. Now, a substance is cultivated in China, and this substance is a part of our program to integrate traditional herbal medicine. When I talk about traditional herbal medicine, I kind of feel that we are talking about some plants or something like that, some herbal medicine into contemporary style of healthcare. So why is this substance being cultivated? It is cultivated to integrate herbal medicine. So we are definitely talking about a plant here. But think about it. A substance, can it be a plant? It cannot be. The only thing which can be a plant over here is the Madagascar periwinkle, right? So again, think of it from a logical standpoint. Try to relate everything which is there in the sentence. What is cultivated in China? Can you tell me what should have been cultivated in China? What do you think? What should have been cultivated in China according to this sentence or the intended meaning of the author? And try and contextualize this part. Focus on the herbal medicine part and also. What is cultivated in China? Tell me, guys, do you think it is the substance or the MP that is cultivated? Think about it. Is it the substance or the MP which is cultivated? Again, I guess there is a little bit of a lag because I see people have responded to my last question. Okay, so good. I see some responses now. Ankur says it should be MP. Karan says it is MP. It should be MP. Yes, it should be MP. It should be MP that is cultivated. A substance cannot be cultivated, guys. You need to understand that. A substance cannot be cultivated. There's no point in saying that. It's illogical to say that. It is the Madagascar periwinkle that is cultivated. And think about the meaning part. Unless you contextualize the meaning, unless you think about, okay, this is the Madagascar periwinkle we are talking about. There is a part of herbal integrating traditional herbal medicine. That is the objective, why it is cultivated. So if you put everything together, you'll be able to understand that it is MP that is cultivated, not the substance. And unless you do that, you will fall for this. If you do not think about it, if you do not contextualize the meaning, you will fall for this error. You will think, okay, there's no problem in a substance is cultivated. It will sound right to you. In fact, those of you who marked C as the correct answer would have fallen for this issue. So what is the intended meaning that the author wants to communicate? The intended meaning that the author wants to communicate here is the Madagascar periwinkle is most likely a plant, as we talked about even earlier. It is most likely a plant that is cultivated in China as part of a certain program. This program is about integrating herbal medicine, and that's where we get to know that it's most likely a plant into a contemporary style of healthcare. Okay, and a substance is derived from this Madagascar periwinkle, this particular plant, and this substance is useful in decreasing mortality among leukemia patients. Okay, now this is how you understand the meaning of the sentence. Now I had to explain you this, and that's why it took a little longer to do that. But if you focus on the meaning, and you can do it right within 1.5 minutes as well. I got a 94 percentile on sentence correction in my GMAT attempt, and I only took 1 minute 15 seconds on an average to solve a SC question, focusing on the meaning-based approach. So it is possible to do it. And if you would have done that properly, you wouldn't have fallen for the trap which is in this question. If you look at this, choice C corrects the issue that is there with which. It tells that it is a derivative which has proved useful in decreasing mortality, but it still says that a Madagascar periwinkle derivative is cultivated in China. But it is not the derivative which is cultivated in China, it is the Madagascar periwinkle which is cultivated in China. Okay, so those of you who marked C as the correct answer felt for this logical error trap. And there are many GMAT sentences, in fact, 700 plus level sentences. If you want to get them right, you have to focus on meaning. And even on the simpler questions, if you focus on meaning, getting them right is much more effective. Okay, so many a times I kind of, and I'm sure you will be able to relate it when I'm actually going to talk about it, that many a times we get stuck between two close choices, and this happens more often in verbal. And when it happens, we always tell many people, and in fact I've seen many experts even saying that this is the best choice out of the two choices which are out there. We actually, as a student, sometimes fall into the trap and we tell ourselves that, okay, verbal is subjective, the problem is not with me. And I used to do that all the time. Trust me, I was great at quant. I used to tell myself, Piyush, you're a smart guy. It's just that verbal is a lot more subjective, and it's always about choosing the best answer choice, and you choose the second best answer choice. So there's no problem with you. There's a problem with the person who has created the question. It's all about perspective at the end. But what changed my score in verbal was when I accepted the fact that there is no best choice. There is only one right answer, and there are four wrong answers in GMAT verbal. There are no gray areas whatsoever. Remember, whenever you are falling for the wrong answer choice, you are making two errors. You are accepting something that is wrong, and you are also rejecting something that is right. So you are always making those two errors. So, in simple terms, when you're focusing on your skills, when you're improving, learning the skills, always remember that skill is not just application, is not just concepts and the practice of those concepts. You have to understand that part really well. Okay, and that's what the myth that I wanted to burst over here, that skills is not just concept plus practice, it requires something else. If you are learning sentence correction just like that by focusing on rules and not having a common thread around them, you will most likely falter. What is should be the right learning curve for SC is you should put all of this around the common thread of meaning. Unless you do that, you will always miss out on one of the grammar errors. You will not be able to recall all the rules. You will not be able to put all of that into practice. So you need to ensure that you are putting a common thread across all of this, and meaning is the common thread that binds all of them. Because think of it like this: why is GMAT testing you on SC? Do like you are gonna apply for an MBA program or a master's in management, they're not looking at grammarians, they're looking at future managers. So they want people who can communicate effectively. So any part of GMAT SC is focusing on the meaning. So focus on learning meaning aspect from the very beginning. And why this is important? This is important because unless you put this in your execution from day one, you will really struggle big time at it. And how do I do this? So the easiest way to do this is ensure that you master the meaning approach first. And that's why at GMATWhiz, we have this thought process that in sentence correction, for example, this is the sentence correction lesson that I'm talking about over here. The entire unit one that you see is dedicated to teaching you the intended meaning of the sentence. Okay, how do you get the intended meaning of any sentence at any point of time? And we do this. We have a dedicated, if you see, there are 8 hours of lesson dedicated to it just to teach you how to get the intended meaning of any sentence in picture. So we first help you understand how to break a sentence. Okay, and even before that we teach you how a sentence is created, and we stay away from grammatical terminologies. We don't use terms like complex sentence, compound sentences, any grammatical terminologies whatsoever. All you need to understand is what is a subject and what is a verb. Clearly identify them, clearly identify the additional information, and understand how each piece is knit together to create a story. And if you're able to understand that story really well, you will be able to apply the meaning based approach. And that's why we first start with the meaning based approach in our course. And that's what you need to do as well. Irrespective of the source you take, whether you take GMATWhiz or any other material out there, make sure that you first build the skill of understanding the intended meaning before getting into individual question types. Because if you're not focusing on individual, like if you're just focusing on individual question types like subject, verb, tenses, you will actually fall into that trap where you will get individual questions correct. Okay, but when you're looking at the entire 700 level questions, you will get them wrong. So first step in sentence correction, and again I'm going to talk about the other aspects as well, you need to focus on is understanding the intended meaning approach. Once you do that, then you can get into individual areas. So for example, in unit 2, for example in GMATWhiz, we get into subject verb pairs, noun pronoun pairs, modifiers, and then in unit 3 in the advanced file we get into tenses, parallelism, and modifier comparison as well. And the idea here is that if you have the understanding of meaning in place, and then you learn each of these rules from a meaning perspective. Remember, if you actually focus on learning the meaning based approach, but then you learn the grammar rules from just a grammar perspective, it will not help. Because when you start thinking about the meaning, you need to find the errors then and there. And you can only get those errors if you know the rules also from a grammar sort of meaning perspective, not a grammar perspective. So we don't really worry about participles, what are gerunds, all of that complex rules like a run-on sentence. Why that sentence is a run-off sentence is what matters. Why a past perfect tense is right in a case and wrong in another case, logically, is what that matters. So you need to learn the rules from a meaning standpoint and apply that meaning-based approach in every single topic from the like on every single topic one step at a time. If you're able to do that, then you're actually learning in a common thread. You're learning in a very organized way, and you will be able to do well on sentence correction. And that's one of the biggest reasons why our students are so successful. That's one of the biggest reasons why we have delivered more than 110 point score improvement in the entire industry. That's the highest number that is ever delivered by any company. So that's one of the biggest reasons. And irrespective of the course you take, please make sure that you have a common thread around it. And not just sentence correction. That's what we follow for CR and RC as well. I've seen in RC, for example, many a time students will just go about reading passages because they say that, okay, there's nothing to learn in RC, there's no concept as such, it's just about practice, do more passages, read economist, read this novel every day, and you're done. I've done that, trust me, my friends. Unless you know how you should read a passage properly, you will not be able to do well on the passage, irrespective of whatever you do. I used to read newspapers for 1 hour every day, and I've done that for 6 months. Okay, it improved my RC, but it was still fluctuating around 40 or 50% accuracy, just that much. I've done that because the way I was reading was not perfect. And if the way you are reading stuff is not perfect, it doesn't matter how many things you read. You're going to repeat the same mistakes again and again. So in reading comprehension also, the first thing that you need to do is understand how to read. Okay, and that's where the unit 1 of our course comes into picture, involved and evolved reading. So what we do is first teach you how do you put yourselves in the author's place and understand even complex passages. Many people tell me that, okay, I don't understand passages which are hard or which are focused on philosophy. And I challenge those students that you give a passage to me from any genre, any complexity that is there in the language, I will make you understand that part. The reason why we are not able to understand is we don't know how to read such passages. We don't place ourselves in the author's shoes. We don't know how to contextualize. So we teach you that skill first. We teach you how to take care of the transition words. We teach you how to take care of opinions. How to differentiate between a fact and an opinion, what is a third party's opinion, what is the author's opinion, how do you utilize all of that, and see the amount of hours which are dedicated to each of these topics. These are covered in depth for you. And that's when we come to paragraph summaries. Okay, how do you take up, summarize the information provided in each para, understand the information in each para, and that's another 4 hours of lesson dedicated to it. And this is how you need to work upon it. Because trust me, guys, if you actually put this 8 or 9 hours of effort over here, your improvement in RC is going to be much more. What people do is they focused on the advanced RC concepts or purpose of passage. For example, they focus on inference question type, detail question type. They learn all of that, and then they do hours of practice for RC. But they don't put in enough effort on the first part. And unless you do that, you will actually end up wasting a lot of time and energy than the number of hours mentioned over here. So just make sure that you first focus on learning what are the right skills. And that's what you need to do even for CR. Okay. Is that point clear to you guys? Any questions till now? Please feel free to let me know if there are any questions till now in your mind. Is this point clear to all of you? So learning the right methods is the key, guys. You need to go through the methods in the right way. And I've just talked about a couple of them. In CR, pre-thinking is the right method. In DS, you need to draw the inferences from the question stem before you move on to the answer choices or the statements. And in RPS, you need to follow a three-step process. We have the three-step process detailed in the course. But make sure you're focusing on learning the right methods from day one and not getting bogged down by shortcuts. Don't start optimizing too soon and start worrying about timings too soon. That is something which I will also cover. But make sure your focus is on the right methods first. That's where your attention should go first of all. All right, let's quickly move to the next point then. I don't see any yeses or nos. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to keep interrupting or asking. I'm more than happy to take them up. But I just want to ensure that this is going in the right direction. You guys are able to relate to what I'm saying over here. Okay, so I'm taking an example from quant as well. So let's say, for example, because I've talked about verbal, we need to talk about quant as well, because this is not a verbal focused webinar. This is more around your study plan, your strategizing. How do you get to that 700 plus kind of a score in the right possible way? Okay, I'm happy to know, Kazi, this is getting across. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts here. So let's solve this question. Okay, how do we solve this question? Okay, let's say this question says find the range of x if x minus 3, x plus 4 multiplied by x minus 1 is greater than 0. Okay, now this is the question. Many a times people who don't know how to solve it in the most effective way, they will start putting options. Okay, they will start putting values of x as 4, 3, 1, 2, whatever. They just do it randomly in many cases. But that's not how it's supposed to be solved. If you actually know how to solve this question, it is very important that you know that method that is called wavy line method or 0 point method or whatever, number line method, what you call it. Different names are there. But if you know the method, you can not only get this question right, but you will be able to get it right in record amount of time as well. So the first step that you need to do is find the 0 points. And how it can be found is you need to equate each element, each factor to 0 and see what is the value of x. So the 0 points are basically 3, 4, and minus 1. Plot those points on a number line. Okay, plot those points on a number line. The second step that you need to do is plot the curve. Now, since whenever you actually use this number line, remember that the value of this particular expression that you see is going to be positive on the rightmost side. Then it is gonna alternate between positive and negative. Again, I'm not teaching you this concept, so I'm not gonna get into the depth of why it is so, but all of this can be easily covered. Okay, good point, Keshav. I'm really happy to see your comment. Keshav says, without a strategy and proper plan in place, preparation can be a recipe for disaster, with hours and hours being wasted. It's true. I've seen that with many people. I've seen people wasting 2 years of their precious time on just the prep and then getting to the target score in the last 2 months alone. Okay, and the change that happened was the strategy, nothing else. So this is basically the value of the expression in this quadrant. So you plot the curve and then you just pick the value which is favorable. So the favorable area, the area that we are looking for, is positive. So the value of x is in this region or in this region. So the answer is x is greater than 3 and x can be between minus 4 and 1. Okay, so if you use this, if you know this wavy line method or if you know this number line method, you will be able to solve this question correctly within the right amount of time. But if you don't know this method, you will not be able to achieve that goal. All right, so it's very important for you to learn this method. Okay, so focus on the methodologies. That is what I'm trying to say. Even in your execution, at every step, you should focus that. Now that brings us to the third myth. People think that practice is what makes a man perfect. So what people do is they will learn concepts, then they will practice questions, and then they just take mock tests and mock tests after that. What they fail to realize is you don't learn from questions, you actually learn from the solutions. See, knowing a method is one thing. Like, for example, I showed you the meaning-based approach. I showed you a number line method, but you need to perfect that. You need to master that. And if you just if you just focus on solving more questions, you are working on the assumption that you learn from the questions and not from the solutions. Okay, that's a very wrong assumption to have. And let me know, guys, how do you analyze the solutions, or how do you analyze the questions that you solve? Can you tell me, guys? Let me hear from you first before I show it to you. Okay, Vinay has a question. It says, if the equation was less than 0, would the rightmost be negative? No, Vinay, that's not how it is. The negative positive part is not driven by what is the question asking. This is how it is. If it is less than 0, you will be selecting the other regions. In that case, you will be selecting the negative regions. Okay. So again, this is not about the concepts. I'm not going to get into the depth of it. But let me ask you guys, how do you analyze solutions? Let's see. Before I talk about it, I would like to hear your comments. When you solve questions or you take up mock tests and all, how do you analyze solutions? Okay. Still waiting for your responses. Okay. Thank you, Vinay. I'm happy that you understood. Okay. Guys, I ask a lot of questions. But I want to make sure that this is an interactive webinar. It's not a one-way communication. I would like to see how do you guys evaluate the questions or review the solutions that you go through, review the solutions of the questions that you go through. So Kazi, how to learn the quant part. So again, Kazi, that is something which I covered a little while earlier. I'm going to get into the depth of it as well once again. So in quant, you need to go through the right section, sequence of the topics which I talked about. If you want to see the sequence, you can probably create a study plan using the free study plan link which I showed earlier. I'm going to quickly show it to you once again. Just give me a second. You can use that link and basically ensure that you have a study plan with you. Using that study plan, you'll be able to see the order in which you should go through each topic in quant. Okay. And I'm then gonna share like what is supposed to be done for each topic as well very soon. Right? That's something which I'm gonna share very soon. So here's the link. Okay. Vinay says I always work with the stem of the question, simplify it. Okay, that is how you solve the question, but what do you do with the solutions, guys? Okay, I have not received many responses, so in the interest of time I'll be moving forward. But what most people do, and what I used to do also as a student earlier, was I only used to review the questions which I got wrong. I never focused on the solutions of the questions which I was getting right. That was one big mistake which I was doing. Okay, I generally did not look at the solutions for the correct questions. It was only when the question is wrong I used to look at the solutions. Okay, so that's one thing which I used to do. And then I was spending time only on option analysis, as one of you was saying, I guess Aman, and understand why a particular option is not a correct choice. So I used to focus on only on option analysis. That okay, I mark choice B. Let's say the correct answer is choice D. So I just look at B and D, or maybe at best A, C, and E. Very quickly, what is the error with them? Okay, but that does not help you improve your score much. It is very important that in the very initial, like you actually review the solutions really well. And how do you review the solutions? Let me actually tell you that. So in order to master the approach, after you have learned the approach, it is important that you refer to the solutions which follow a consistent and logical method. See, it is important to review the solutions, right? But first thing that you need is you need to have solutions which follow a consistent and logical method. In many cases, students are not to blame. In many cases, the solutions that they get are not as detailed. The solutions do not have the right step-by-step approach either. It is just about telling which is the right answer and which is the wrong answer. In many cases, many coaching institutes or many classes or many courses just focus on telling you what is right and what is wrong, but they don't give you a logical and consistent method of solving the questions in the solution. So first thing you need to have is solutions which you give you that. Second thing that you need to do is you need to verify each question irrespective of whether you get it right or wrong. I don't care whether you get it right or wrong. Make sure you verify each of the solution. And how do you verify it? Spend 80% of your time reviewing the sentence, argument, or passage analysis. Even for quant, review the step-by-step methodology. If there are certain cases being taken, you try and understand why those particular cases were taken and why something else was not taken into account. So spend the time doing that. Don't just rush to the option choices. And when you are doing this, note down the variances in your approach so that you can master the right approach. Okay, always note down the variances, because if you're not noting down the variances when you're actually going through the solution, you're not actually learning. You're not learning at all. So ensure that you are noting down the variances at every single step. If you see that there is a difference in what you did versus what you were supposed to do, note down the variance and improve on it, work on it. And sometimes this is all Hebrew if I don't show an example. So I'm going to show an example to you in front of you. So this is a CR question, okay, which is there in front of you. Again, I don't want you to solve this. I just want you to look at it for a minute, like give it a 1 minute read, 1.5 minute read maybe. Just give it a read. I don't want you to solve it. I just want you to read it, and then I'll show you the solution and I'll tell you how to review the solutions so that you understand exactly what is supposed to be done when you're learning. Okay, and trust me guys, GMAT is all about hard work plus smart work. Okay, so smart work we talked about, but it is also about hard work. You cannot really have shortcuts, so I'm talking about that. But let me give you 1 minute. I'm going to be muted for a minute. Just read this question. All right, I guess you guys would have read it by now. So let me now show you how you should analyze the solution. And this has to do more with the question system analysis than with to anything else. And that's why I'm not going to focus on the option analysis as of now, because I'm sure option analysis is what most people do. So let's say, so this is a GMATWhiz question, and this is a solution to the same question on the GMATWhiz platform. So what you're supposed to do is, when you read the sentence, the argument for the first time, you need to ask yourself, okay, when I read the first sentence, like, okay, go back to this. When I read the first sentence, just the first sentence, not the second one, just the first sentence, was I able to draw this inference that total area of currently cultivated land is equal to the total area of unexplored land? Were you able to come to this inference? Even if you got the question right and you did not come to this inference, there is a scope of learning, because you might make a mistake. You did not make a mistake in this question, you might make a mistake in something else. So make sure that you match your inference from the first sentence with what is given over here. Similarly, you will read the second sentence and you will see that, okay, when I read till the second sentence, did I combine both pieces of inferences, both pieces of sentences together and come to this level of inference or not? Did I come to this level of inference? If you did not, then there's still some learning which is there. You need to correct your approach. And we teach you how to do this, all of that in the course first. And then only we show you the solution. So again, doesn't matter whether you're using my course or some other course, but make sure you're seeing solution like this. Don't just look at the option choices. And I'm repeating this again and again because this happens with me multiple times. Even today, I was having a discussion with one student who already has a verbal 34. Okay, I asked him to solve a question in front of me. Then he solved it and I solved it, and I asked him to see what was the difference and tell me what was the difference between his approach and my approach. He was initially focused on the concepts that he picked and the concepts that I picked. But I told him that, okay, concepts can be different in different questions. And if you just focus on concepts or specific errors, you will never be able to improve on the next question that you're going to solve, because you need to understand the root cause of it. And the root cause can only be understood if you are matching your approach like this. Okay, then you read this part and make sure that your inference matches and so on. That's what you need to do. So when you are actually learning every topic, and this goes to you, Kazi, you were talking about quant. So in quant also, and in verbal as well, whenever you're learning a topic is nothing but like prime numbers, for example, assumption, modifiers, anything like this is a topic. Whenever you're learning a topic, there should be 3 stages of learning. First stage of learning should be learning concepts. Learn all the rules, all the concepts, all the formulas that exist for that thing properly first. Then right away you should focus on learning a methodical approach. Okay, how do I understood that concept now, but how do I put it all to practice using a methodical approach that get me to the result at the fastest possible time? And then is when you start practicing questions on that topic. And if you follow all 3 steps, you're definitely gonna get a 700 plus on GMAT. But sadly, most of the people jump from stage 1 to stage 3. They do not learn a master methodical approach, and they end up repeating the same mistakes, and they end up getting stuck in this score range. So whenever you take up any topic, and this is very important again, guys, whenever you're learning any topic, just make sure you focus on all three stages of learning, all three stages. Okay. And to help you with this, GMATWhiz has come up with the idea, a very unique idea of concept booster. And what we do in this is, when we teach you the first step, which is the concepts, we give you video lectures to learn that. Okay, we have video lessons to teach you all the concepts that are tested on GMAT from that particular topic. To teach you mastering the methodical approach, we have this concept boosters, and I'll tell you what this concept boosters are about. So in the concept boosters, what we do is we give you only one question to solve at a time. Okay, let's say for example in prime numbers, we researched and identified that there are 10 different varieties of questions. There are 200 questions which could have come on GMAT, but they can be broadly classified into 10 different categories or varieties. So you get one question from each of those categories. Okay, and what you do is you get to solve one question at a time, which is followed by a detailed methodical solution. So you analyze the solution right away, note down the variances that exist. Okay, figure out the gaps in your application in terms of the method that you're using, what is the gap in your understanding, so that you're able to apply that on the next question right then and there. In that way, by the time you reach the end of the fifth question, you are not just sure about the method, you have applied that on all different varieties of questions as well. So each question is handpicked and covers a different aspect in the concept boosters that are there. And that's why at GMATWhiz, for every topic, we have this 3-step learning process. First step is we learn the concepts using the video lessons. Then you learn the application using the concept boosters. And then you solve questions on it through our personalized quizzes. And it's the AI-driven platform, which actually gives you real-time improvement modules based on your strengths and weaknesses. So again, this is just I'm talking about GMATWhiz, but even if you don't take GMATWhiz, if you study somewhere else, make sure that you are following these 3 steps as it is. These 3 steps in the same order you should be focusing on, because if you do that, you will be able to generate a pretty good understanding of the same. Okay, so that's the next step. Now let's come to the assessing phase stage. So we have talked about the learning phase, we have talked about the execution phase. How do we go about doing all of that? Now let's talk about the assessing phase. That okay, how do I assess myself in when you're executing things? Okay, so in the learning phase, you focus on learning the right method. And when you move to the fine tuning phase, when you have actually covered all the areas and you're now to the fine tuning phase, at that point of time, you should focus on timing. Because many a times what I see is people actually start thinking about timing too soon. They start thinking about timing too soon. They focus on, let's say, thinking about reducing the time as well as soon as they start learning the right method. Please don't do that, because if you start over optimizing at the same time, it sometimes gets you the wrong outcome. It doesn't help you reach the right outcome. So in the learning phase, when you're learning all these methodologies that I talked about, don't time yourself. Okay, because if you start thinking about timing, your focus will shift away from learning and your score will end up stagnating. So in the initial phases, whenever you're learning the right method, it is okay to take extra time. You will take some additional time to solve questions. It won't be that you will be able to get to the right approach in the right amount of time. Initially, it will take extra time, and it's not natural process. Think about the day when you learned driving for the first time. You have to think about the brake, the accelerator, the gearbox, the side mirrors, and all of it was a big task in itself. But when you drove for quite some time, you were actually able to get a pretty good handle over it, and you were able to do it very naturally. Okay, so it's the same way whenever you learn a new skill. So give yourself time, because if you start thinking about timing too soon, your focus will shift away from learning. Okay, and you should master one topic before moving on from the second topic. And this is very, very critical again, guys. Many a times I've seen students not doing this properly. What they do is they work on one topic. Okay, and before even ensuring that they have improved their understanding or taken it to the next level in that particular topic, they move to the next one. Okay, and if you do that, there is a very, very high chance that you might as well make errors related to a more basic topic, and you might feel that okay, you have issues with something else. Okay, so unless you clearly understand why are you having the issues that you're having, it is gonna be a issue, it's gonna be a trouble for you. Okay, so whenever you complete a topic, and when I say a topic, I mean, what I mean is modifiers, parallelism, any single individual topic, you should take a topic wise test, find out the strengths that are there, and if you have some weaknesses, you need to focus on the weak parts right away. Identify the conceptual gaps, work on the conceptual gaps, otherwise the issues will pile up. Okay, and if you are again using GMATWhiz, as I said, this is an AI driven course. What happens is the portal automatically identifies your gap. So let's say you're taking this triangles practice quiz. Okay, when you complete that quiz, when you're taking that quiz, complete that quiz. Let's quickly see that part. So let's say I completed this quiz and I submitted. The AI will look at all the questions that you have attempted, identify which skills are you lacking. So it will analyze your strengths and weaknesses, identify which modules in the course talk about that, and take out those suggestions for you and serve it to you on your platter. So you can see that these are the areas that you are not good at. There are certain videos that is identified which talk about the same areas. It has also identified a quiz on the same. So it has created a question pool also to help you work on these gaps. So all this is given to you. All you need to do is accept these changes and add it to your course. Once you add these changes to your course, they will actually be automatically shared with you on the same platform in the same place itself. So you can see these additional activities has been added, short videos has been added, all of this has been added to your course, and with an additional quiz to test your understanding. So this is how you're supposed to go. Even if you don't take GMAT, you take something else, just make sure that you're working on identifying individual gaps right after you complete a topic. Okay, so assess yourself at relevant intervals. That is very, very critical. Okay, and whenever you're done with a particular area, let's say you're done with sentence correction or critical reasoning or verbal in general, you need to optimize your learning further. And how do you do that? You take a module wise test. A module is nothing but sentence correction, for example, is a module, CR is a module, RC is a module. So what you do is you take module wise test, maybe take 1 or 2 quizzes of 15 to 30 questions each, and identify areas in where your score is less than 60%, and optimize, focus on improving those areas. Now if you're again like we have a tool, I'm showing the snapshot of my course because that's something which I have handy with me, but if you're using another tool also, you can do the same thing. In our quiz course, we have something called Quizard, which is our quizzing platform. In Quizard we have an option of where you can select individual quizzes. So you can just select geometry quizzes or algebra quizzes, or even within geometry you can take just circles and combine it with quadrilaterals and polygons. So you can use this tool if you are a GMATWhiz student. If you're not a GMATWhiz student, you can take any other quiz sectionally, and then you need to check your performance. So if you are a GMATWhiz student, again you will have this data points with you. You can look at number properties, click on and like top areas to improve. You have this analyze your topics here. So you can click on algebra, for example. Any topic you want to see where you need to improve, you can see it here directly. Anything you want to see, you can see it here. It will show you which areas you need to improve upon. And if you want much more details into it, you can always click on the show more button on the screen, which is there on the bottom of the screen. It will even open a more detailed viewpoint. It will show you your accuracy across difficulty levels as well. So what you need to identify is where your weak areas are. That's the first thing that you need to do after taking this module wise test. Okay, and once you're aware of that, how you improve on it is you revise this concepts, revisit the concepts properly, solve and review the solutions, and focus on learning the application part. So this is very, very critical, guys, and this all has to be done before you start taking mock tests. And when you're doing this, please focus on quality more than quantity. Don't focus on solving tons of questions. Focus on learning from each question that you're solving. That's very critical for you guys. Okay, so once you are done with this, once you have identified your optimized your weak areas, then you need to take up sectional tests, individual sectional tests in quant, in verbal, to optimize your timing, reduce your timing to the level that you should take it at, and then take up mock tests. So if you take focus on this approach, follow this approach, even 4 to 5 mock tests should be sufficient. And make sure that when you're taking mock tests, you focus on the right test taking strategy. Okay, so that's pretty much it from my side. If you have any other questions with regards to your strategy, with regards to your prep, feel free to let me know. right now. I'll be more than happy to take any questions that you have with you. And feel free to connect with me on Piyush at the rate of GMATWhiz.com. That's my email ID. And if you want to connect with me over a call or a WhatsApp, you have my WhatsApp number on the screen. You can connect with me on this WhatsApp number as well. And I'll quickly share the link to schedule a discussion with me. If you want to schedule a discussion with me, you can use this link to schedule a discussion later on with me. You want to personally discuss something, or if you have any questions right now in your mind, you can feel free to ask me here. Feel free to ask me here if you have any questions. I'm more than happy to take it up. In the meantime, you guys ask your questions. I'm gonna quickly run you through a very limited price deal that we are offering on our course. So in this new year period, we are really happy to offer some discounts on our courses, and this is the best discounts that we only offer during the Black Friday sale and the New Year sale, where you can actually get flat 60% off on our courses. Our online course is just available for a flat fee of $199. That gives you access to 3,000 plus questions and around 50 plus 100 plus hours of video lessons and a personalized study plan, all of that which was shown to you earlier, and a lot more. So you can avail this discount. I'm just showing you some of the uh, like the link over here. I've just shared it. If you want to avail this discount, you can look at it. And this link is only this discount is only available till tomorrow. We plan to do it till the 1st of January only, but since we had this webinar, we have just extended the deal till 3rd of January. So you have one more day. You can avail this deal. Then the prices will revert to normal. Okay, so feel free to use this deal if you are interested in looking at a GMAT course, which is personalized and not just a standard run of the mill course out there. Okay, so let me see if there are any other questions. Keshav says, thank you so much for the valuable insights. We'll touch base with you and take it forward basis your suggestions, sir. Great, Keshav. I'm happy that the webinar helped. So looking forward to our discussion. Okay, I see a question from Ashina. So could you please tell me all the study material we should study? So Ashina, first of all, very important learning. Don't really focus on learning from too many resources. That's ideally not the right thing to do, because most resources will use different methodologies. OG is a must. You should solve OG questions, not because that like a particular course may not be good, but it's more about getting the confidence in place. So try to get one resource which works for you and stick to that. Do your proper research to identify the resource, but make sure you stick to one resource. Ideally, you should not be using multiple things. For additional practice, you can use like different resources also, like even GMAT Club. There are a lot of free questions which are available. So for practicing, you can use them, but for learning purpose, stick to one resource. Okay. It's a very important thing. So I would recommend GMATWhiz, not because it's just my course, but because we created this course after working with a lot of students and seeing that none of the other courses were solving all the problems that students have. And that's why we have been able to deliver 111 points improvement today, with just because of the personalization that we focus on. Okay. So Kazi, I'm happy that you really like the session. So great to know that. If you guys love the session, please feel free to share it with your friends. One way to do that is liking and commenting here and sharing the link with your friends. Make sure that it reaches out to them. So feel free to give it a thumbs up if you really like the webinar today. And I'm gonna answer any questions that you might have. So please feel free to let me know. My contact details are here on your screen, and also feel free to get in touch with me or book a call with me using this link which is flashing on your screen. Okay, so feel free to do that. If you have any other questions, I'm here, all here to help you out. Let me know whatever questions you have. Okay. Okay, I don't see any other question. There might be a little bit of lag. So I'm really happy to have this session with you guys. I tried my best to inculcate all the important lessons that I give my students who work with us. I try to inculcate all of those lessons in this webinar today. It has worked for them, and I'm sure if you follow this lessons and the solutions, it will work for you as well. So ensure that you follow all of this. And if you don't have any question as of now, if you come across a question later on, feel free to reach out to me. My contact details are with you. Feel free to get in touch with me at any point of time. All right. So it was really nice interacting with all of you. A very happy new year to all of you. May this 2021 be fruitful for you. You get to your target score and end up entering your dream like MB school that you are aiming for. So all the best. Really nice evening to those of you who are still in the daytime zone, and a good night to all of you who are from India and around me. So